Brigadier General Joe Ramirez, Jr. is a graduate of Texas A&M University, where he was a member of the Texas Aggie Band in the Corps of Cadets and a distinguished military graduate. During his 31 years of military service, General Ramirez commanded soldiers around the world and served in leadership positions. He is a recipient of numerous medals and awards and the holder of 2 master's degrees. Prior to being named Vice President for Student Affairs at Texas A&M University, Joe served as the outstanding 45th Commandant of the Cadets at A&M from 2010 to 2021, growing it in numbers and diversity. A dynamic speaker and lecturer, Joe enjoys sharing his knowledge and experience on leadership with others. His involvement in the Brazos Valley community is extensive, including numerous boards such as the United Way of Brazos Valley, the Salvation Army of Bryan College Station, Ronald McDonald House Charities of Central Texas, the Texas Veterans Association, the Sam Houston Area Council of Boy Scouts of America, the Brazos Valley Symphony Orchestra, how about that? And he is also a regular contributor to Leadership Brazos and Junior Leadership Brazos. Joe and his wife Terry have 9 children and 7 grandchildren. They both enjoy traveling, listening to life music, R&B, jazz, and classic rock. All right, their favorites. Sporting events, spending time with their grandchildren. He's an avid physical fitness buff who enjoys spending time at the gym and volunteering in the community. Ladies and gentlemen, stand up if you don't mind and give this man a real round of applause. Thank you so much, General Joe Ramirez.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here.
Very gracious introduction. Thank you very much. Please sit down. Thank you. Well, good morning. Or as we say in Aggie land, howdy. Well, it is my honor and my pleasure to be here with you today. As mentioned, I had a chance to speak at that Chamber of Commerce event in February and was really honored afterwards. I've spoken at several chambers of commerce since then, and by the way, I just joined the Chamber of Commerce in the Brazos Valley, so excited to do that as well. And I got to tell you, when I went to Texas A&M long ago, Katy was a bunch of rice fields. I had a friend of mine who lived out here, and we came out to his place, and you could see the lights of Houston from his place out here in Katy, and it's amazing how this place has grown. What's it got, about 10 high schools now? Something like that. I went to Cinco Ranch last night, La Centera, to have dinner last night. Amazing what you guys have done out here. It's a beautiful area, and I got to tell you, if people don't want to come here, then they're missing out big time on this community. So well done by all of you. I'm going to talk a little bit today about leadership, and I will tell you right up front, I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I was just fortunate enough to, over 31 years in the United States Army, to have been led by some phenomenal leaders, and to have also had the opportunity to lead some of America's finest sons and daughters in both peacetime and in wartime. And I learned a lot of good lessons along the way, and these are the kinds of lessons that I think transcend any career field you may go into. I used them in the military, and I use them to this day at Texas A&M University, where I work with 75,000 18 to 22-year-olds. That's right, 75,000 of them. There have been a few days there where I thought being in combat was a lot easier. But I use those lessons today, and I hope I can impart something to you that you might be able to use in your day-to-day work with people, because leadership is not easy. And I used to tell this to all of my junior leaders, especially as we were getting ready to deploy. It ain't easy. If it were easy, everybody could do it. Not everybody can. There's an art and a science to it, but it's important that we do this right. And I think today our nation needs leadership probably more than ever before in our country's history. Good leadership. And it's up to us to not only be that example, but also teach our young people what good leadership looks like. So I'm going to share just a few lessons I've learned. I could spend hours talking about the lessons I've learned throughout my career, but I'll share just a few with you, and then I'll finish up with a story, and then I'll let you get on your way. First slide, please. Now, I graduated in 1979 from Texas A&M University, and I graduated in the morning, and that afternoon I got commissioned in the United States Army at G. Raleigh White Coliseum at Texas A&M University, which is no longer there. I was a physical education major, PE, That's not petroleum engineering. That's physical education. You know, people used to say, PE, petroleum engineering, huh? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, close. But G. Riley White Coliseum is no longer there. But that was where I graduated in the morning, commissioned that afternoon. And so I'm standing there in my Class A uniform, and my mom and dad are pinning on my gold bars of a second lieutenant. It was a proud day for my family. I was the first member of my family ever to go to college. Very proud day for us. And my mom, of course, is crying because she thinks I'm immediately going to go off to Vietnam, and the war had already been over 4 years. My dad, who was a veteran, looked at me and said, son, let me give you one piece of advice that I think will serve you well as you become a leader in our Army. And I said, what's that, Dad? He said, take care of your men, and your men will take care of you. And that has served me well for almost 45 years of leading organizations, whether it was peacetime or wartime, whether it was a 12-man platoon or overseeing 75,000 students. You take care of your people, and your people will take care of you. Now, when I say take care of your people, I don't mean treat them like children, let them off easy, coddle them. No, you hold them to the standard. You make sure they're doing the job you pay them to do. You ensure they understand that they've got a responsibility for the job that they do, to uphold their responsibility every day. But there's something to be said about showing them that you are not just a leader, but that you're a person and that you care about them. You would be surprised what a difference you will make in your people's lives when you walk in the morning and you say, hey, how you doing this morning, Joe? Wow, the boss knows my name, and he said good morning to me. You'd be surprised if something that small will have a huge impact on your people. You know, when the leader acknowledges people and treats them like people, it's amazing what a difference it'll make in their output for you. Now, I commanded a battalion at Fort Stewart, Georgia. I was an artillery officer. We deployed to northern Kuwait, right on the Iraqi border. At the time, Saddam's Republican Guard was on the other side of the border. I deployed there with a 5,000-man brigade combat team out of the 3rd Infantry Division. I commanded all the artillery. I had 800 soldiers under my command. And if you've ever been to Kuwait, unlike Cancun, not high on my vacation list, I'll put it to you like that. Miles and miles and miles of sand. I mean, nothing out there in that desert. The average temperature when we got there was about 135 to 140 degrees every day. You just think it's been hot here recently. This ain't nothing. Just miserable conditions out there. And every day I would walk my gun line and I would talk to my soldiers. I would see how they were doing. I would check on them, make sure they were doing okay. I knew 800 soldiers by name. Every single one of them I knew by name. And the reason I was able to do that was I learned something about each of my soldiers that I could connect with them about something. So I knew Jones over here just had a baby. Hey, Jones, how's the baby doing? You've heard from the wife, everything okay back home? I knew Smith over here liked NASCAR, and I didn't know anything about NASCAR, but hey, who's the hottest driver on the NASCAR circuit right now? Where's the next race? You know, something to talk about NASCAR. I knew Schmedlap over here liked the Detroit Lions. And I'd say, man, it sucks to be you. You know, you're a Detroit Lions fan, man. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, you know. Yeah, it sucks to be me lately with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not a big Jerry Jones fan. But I found something to connect with all of my soldiers on. I would talk to them every day. But every day, we shot. We shot during the day, we shot at night, and when we thought we were there, we shot some more. Because I was going to make sure that when the bullets started flying for real, nobody under my command could say, nobody trained me. Nobody took care of me. Nobody showed me what to do. I didn't know my job because nobody had prepared me. That was not going to happen. I was going to make sure that every soldier knew what they had to do when it was the toughest situation out there. I held them to the standard, but I also knew they knew I'd go to hell and back for them, and I knew they would go to hell and back for me. That's the kind of leadership that you want to try to develop with your organization. I want you to look at this picture, because I'm a soldier. I get one soldier picture in all of my presentations. This is my one. Now, I want you to know that this is called a 4-man stack. This is Baghdad, 2004. All right, and these 4 men are about to enter a room under some very dangerous conditions, because in that room are men that want to do them harm. And this is one of those things that we train over and over and over again, because if we don't get this right, good men die. Now, I want you to notice where everybody's oriented in this picture, because what's important about this drill is that every soldier has an assigned sector of fire. And if one soldier fails to cover his assigned sector of fire, they put the entire team at risk, they put the entire mission at risk, and good soldiers could die. Now, that's the kind of organization you want to build, where everybody understands I play an important role in this organization. I am a valued member of this team. And if I don't do my part, I put the entire organization at risk. I put my friends, my coworkers at risk if I'm not doing what I need to do. Everybody in your organization needs to feel valued. They need to understand that they play an important role in your organization. And that starts with good leadership. Talk to your people and show them what good leadership is all about, and make sure they understand that they are a valued member of your team and that you care about them. You take care of your people, and your people will take care of you. Next slide. Now, one of the things I deal with every single day with these young people is dealing with adversity. Because many of the young people we get today, I'm going to say many, some of the young people we get today just don't have the skills to deal with disappointment, setback, failure. It just crushes them the first time they make a D on a chemistry exam. You know, I tell them, you want to see my report card from college? It's amazing how we spend a lot of time talking to them about how to deal with adversity. Because, as we all know, adversity is part of life. When I was the Commandant of Cadets, every May, I would bring all the seniors into a big auditorium, and I would talk to them. And I would try to share some pearls of wisdom about, life and what they were about to face as they were getting out there and getting ready to join the real world. And one of the things I would tell them was, believe it or not, the best days of your life are all out ahead of you. You may think the best days of your life are spent here at Texas A&M and going to football games and going to Northgate, which is our party area for the college kids, and making friends and doing all that. But trust me, the best days of your life are all out ahead of you. But you know what else? So are the worst days of your life. The worst days of your life are yet to come. Both personally and professionally, you are going to see some bad days out there. And you as a leader have got to learn how to deal with that. Because every leader has got to deal with adversity on a daily basis. And if you don't figure this out, it could be disastrous for you and your organization. Every leader has to figure out, how do I deal with adversity? How do I deal with those bad times that are going to come our way? Because like it or not, it's going to happen. Now, I grew up in inner city Houston. I grew up in the second ward area of inner city Houston, and I boxed when I was in high school. Golden Gloves boxer, and I love boxing to this day. I'm a huge boxing fan, and I love Rocky movies. I have seen every Rocky movie ever made. Rocky 1 through 58, I've seen them all, much to my wife's chagrin. And there's a scene in the movie Rocky Balboa where Rocky's talking to his grown son, who's a young business executive, and his son is lamenting the fact that he's just not rising fast enough in the organization. He's not getting the promotions, the pay raises, he's not rising in the organization, and he blames his dad and the giant shadow that his dad's name casts. And Rocky looks at him and says, let me tell you something. Nothing is going to hit harder than life. It will beat you down and keep you there if you let it. But it ain't how hard you hit. It's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How hard you can take the hits and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And I'll give you another one from boxing that I'll share with you because I like boxing so much. Getting knocked down is life. Getting back up and getting back into the fight is living. Everybody gets knocked down. Everybody gets knocked down. Life is a full contact sport, and it will knock you down and keep you there if you let it. But as a leader, it's up to you to decide whether you're going to lay there on the canvas, throw in the towel and say, I quit, or whether you're going to get back up, dust yourself off, and get back into this fight that we call life. Leaders get up every single time. That's what you do. For you, for your people, for your organization, for your family. You get up every single time and get back into this fight that we call life. And make no mistake about it, your people are going to watch you to see how you deal with adversity because they will cue off of you. Learn how to deal with adversity, and more importantly, teach your people how to deal with adversity because those bad times, as we all know, are going to come. They're going to happen, and you're going to have to be able to deal with that, and your people have got to learn how to be able to deal with that because one of these days they will replace you in that leadership role, and you want them to be prepared for those days when things just don't go well. Learn how to deal with adversity and teach your people how to deal with adversity. Next slide. Now this one I call Leadership 101. Lead by example. You've probably all heard it before. Lead by example. And it sounds really simple. In my day when I was at work and I was a young lieutenant or captain, when I was at work, I was the captain or I was the commander. I was in charge. Had to look the part, had to act the part. When I got home, my wife quickly reminded me that I had no rank at home. And, there was none of this rank stuff there, no barking orders. If anybody was barking orders, she was. But when I went home, I was off duty. I could turn that switch off. I was Joe. I was Dad. So it was easy for me to be home with my family and be off. That is hard to do today because of one thing. This gadget we call a cell phone. You may have heard about them. Because these gadgets, they have cameras. And they take pictures and they take video 24/7. Now, every morning when I get up, I normally do some PT, and then I'll go take a shower. And while I'm sitting there shaving, I have Sports Center on the TV. Love sports, love to watch Sports Center. And almost every day, somebody has said something or done something stupid that somebody's caught on with either picture or video, and it's up there for the world to see. And it doesn't matter which career field you're talking about, whether it's sports, entertainment, politics, big business, it doesn't matter. If you've done something stupid, somebody out there has got it on camera. Somebody's got it on camera. You can watch YouTube, you can watch TikTok, you can watch any of those social media sites, FaceSpace, MyBook, InstaChat, that Snapgram thing. They got all these things out there, and they'll put them on these social media sites, and they go viral in a matter of seconds. So this lead by example piece is important. This is a 24/7 endeavor. You just can't turn it off when you feel like it because somebody is watching you literally 24/7. And the people that watch you the closest, believe it or not, are the people that love you the most. Moms and dads, husbands and wives, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. They're watching you too. They're proud of you. They're proud of who you are and what you've achieved. And what you don't want to do is let them down. For me, this equates to be the kind of leader you would want to follow. Be the kind of leader you would want to follow. And if you're doing that every day and you're showing your people what right looks like every day, this should be relatively easy for you. But for these young people, when I talk to them, I tell them, remember now, this is a 24/7 endeavor for you. Now, you live in a whole different environment today than I did back in my day when, thank God, we didn't have these phones and these social media thing. Otherwise, I'd probably be selling Amway products for a living. So just remember, this lead by example piece is important. And it's a 24/7 endeavor, and we need to be teaching our young people that every single day. Next slide. Now, this picture here is very important to me. That woman sitting there on the left is my grandmother. My grandmother grew up in San Benito, Texas. She had no education whatsoever. She raised 13 children. She was a housewife and a mother. That's what she did. That was my grandmother. That man sitting on the far right is my grandfather. My grandfather was a janitor at Rice University here in Houston. He used to catch the bus from the inner city in the house I grew up in out to Rice University, where he swept floors and scrubbed toilets for a living. And that young man sitting next to my grandfather, that's my father. My father graduated from Sam Houston High School in Houston in 1950, and 3 days later, he joined the Army. He was going to get out of the inner city and go see the world. Anybody know what happened in 1950? The Korean War breaks out. June of 1950, North Korea invades South Korea. Bad timing for Private Joe Ramirez, who was a sniper with the 1st Cavalry Division, because in August of 1950, he's headed to South Korea. They land at the Pusan perimeter, which is literally the very southern tip of South Korea, which is where all of the United Nations forces have been pushed down to by the North Koreans. They landed, and went immediately into combat operations. They pushed the North Koreans completely out of South Korea, completely out of North Korea, and all the way into China. And in November 1950, my father's outfit was sitting in a place called Unsan, which is very close to the Yalu River, which is the border between China and North Korea when the Chinese entered the war. 300,000 Chinese came across the border. They overran my father's outfit. His platoon got cut off. They tried to fight their way back to friendly lines. They got ambushed. He was shot 5 times and was taken prisoner of war by the Chinese. He spent the next 33 months as a prisoner of war in a place called Pyeongtaek, which is a very northern part of North Korea, right on the Chinese border. He was repatriated in 1953, weighing 70 pounds, and went on to serve our country for 22 years, retiring in 1972 as a master sergeant. Now, I tell you that because I never forgot this the entire time that I stood in front of others as their leader. I never forgot where I come from. I never forgot what I represent. I never forgot the legacy I carry forward every day that I stand in front of others as their leader. Now, every one of you has your picture. Every one of you's got a picture that you can look at. And by the way, this sits in my living room to this day. Every one of you's got a picture that reminds you of who you are and where you come from and what you represent. Don't ever do anything to bring discredit to your picture and the people that are in it that gave you the opportunity to do what you want to do and be what you want to be. Don't do anything to bring discredit to your picture. Now, I have 2 sons, and both of my sons served. My oldest son enlisted in the Army as an infantryman. My youngest son graduated from A&M Corpus Christi and went into the Army as an artillery officer and deployed 3 times, once to Iraq, twice to Afghanistan. And I used to tell both of my sons that as mundane as it may seem in the morning when you put that uniform on, just remember that everything you represent is on that uniform if all you have on is that name tag. Because that name tag for me is that right there. It's a reminder of who I am and what I represent every day and the legacy that I carry forward every day that I'm standing in front of others as their leader. Don't ever do anything to bring discredit to your name tag, because every one of you's got a name tag. You don't have to wear it overtly, but every one of you's got a name tag. Don't ever do anything to bring discredit to your name tag. Remember the people that gave you that name proudly and expect you to carry it forward as proudly as they did. Lead by example in everything you do. And remember who you are and where you come from every day. And carry that pride forward in everything you do every single day, especially when you're dealing with people that work for you, or people that are younger than you, people that are looking up to you as their leader. Next slide. This is my last slide. And I don't put this up here to be morbid, but one of these days, every one of us is going to have one of these over us. Death and taxes. It's reality. And when you look at a tombstone, you normally see 2 things on that tombstone. You see the name and you see the dates. And there's always 2 dates on a tombstone. And the first one is birth, and the second one, death. Exactly. So you look at the tombstone and you say, okay, guy's name is Ramirez. Let me do the math. He lived to be 179 years old. Man, lived a great life, and they move on. Everybody that looks at a tombstone always overlooks one little thing on that tombstone, and that's that line between those 2 dates that we call the dash. And why is that dash important? Well, that dash represents every day, every week, every month, and every year of your life between that first date and that second date. That dash is your life. So I'll ask you today, the same way I asked the cadets and the young people that are graduating and about to go out and make their mark in the world, how are you going to live your dash? What are you going to do with your dash? One of these days, when they put one of these over you, what are people going to say about your dash? And it's my hope that you'll live a dash that makes an impact, that makes a difference, especially in the dashes of others, that makes the dashes of others better, more productive, more rewarding. You want to live a dash that truly makes a difference, that truly has an impact. Now, being a member of a Chamber of Commerce, that's having an impact on other people's dashes in a big way, how are your people living their dashes? And I tell the young people, I'm on the backside of my dash. I mean, I've already been out there and done that. Your dash is all out ahead of you. And you need to be thinking about what you want to do with your dash as you move forward from graduating from Texas A&M University and going out there to make your mark in the world. How are you going to live your dash? And again, it's my hope that every one of you lives a dash that truly has an impact and makes a difference, especially in the dashes of others. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story, and I'll try to get through this one as quickly as I can, but it's a tough story to tell, but it brings together a lot of the leadership lessons I've just told you about. Anytime a soldier is killed in Iraq or Afghanistan, the Army assigns a general officer to preside over their funeral. And so when I became a general officer, I presided over 5 funerals. And it's one of those things you hate to do, but it's also one of those things you're honored to do, to pay final respects to a young man or woman who has given their life in service to our nation. So I was the deputy commander for a guy by the name of Dave Petraeus, the same guy that promoted me to Brigadier General. And I get a phone call saying, General, we just had a young lieutenant killed in Carlisle, Iraq, and we need somebody to preside over his funeral. Would you be willing to do it? And of course I said I'd be honored to do it. Now when you agree to do one of these funerals, they send you a packet that has all the information on the person whose funeral you're about to preside over. So I get this packet and I start reading about this young lieutenant who was just killed. This young lieutenant was a West Point graduate. He was the oldest of 3 brothers. He had graduated from West Point, commissioned in the Army as a field artillery officer. I'm a field artillery officer. Had gone to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for his officer basic training, and then was assigned to a parachute infantry regiment in Alaska. 3 months after he got to his unit, he was deployed to Iraq. And a month after he got to Iraq, he was killed in action in Carlisle. His middle brother was a junior at West Point at the time. And his youngest brother was in junior high, and all he wanted to do was go to West Point like his older brothers and be an Army officer. The family was from a place called Verdon, Nebraska. Small farming community, heartland of America, Verdon, Nebraska. So I find out when this young man's funeral is going to be, and I head out for Verdon, Nebraska. Now it's January. And it's cold in Nebraska in January. I'm just telling you. I pull into this little community. There's snow on the ground. It's about 8 degrees outside, bitter cold. And in the center of the town is a little community center, and that's where they're going to hold the memorial service. So I pull up to this community center. I walk in. There are 1,500 people inside that community center to honor this young man, including the governor, the lieutenant governor, and at the time, Senator Chuck Hagel, all there to honor this young man who died in service to our nation. So I go in there and I start meeting folks and everything, and the service begins. Now, this young man had been in the West Point Glee Club that sang the song Mansions of the Lord for the movie We Were Soldiers. And if you've ever seen the movie We Were Soldiers, a movie Mel Gibson, the 7th Cavalry Regiment in Vietnam, first time the U.S. Army had ever faced the North Vietnamese Army in 1965. Great movie. At the end of that movie, they play this song, Mansions of the Lord. Beautiful song, very mournful. This young man had been on the Glee Club at West Point that sang the song for the movie. So, of course, at the memorial service, they play this song. And here I am standing in front of this audience in my Class A uniform, representing the Secretary of the Army, the Chief of Staff of the Army, trying to maintain my composure as I'm listening to this beautiful song that I had heard many times before as a former member of the 1st Cavalry Division. When the service is over with, I've got to go up and present this young man's medals to the mom and dad, who, by the way, are my age. And it really hit me as I'm looking at mom and dad there, it hit me hard that they had just lost their oldest son, because at the time I was the father of 2 soldiers. So I walk up there to this mom and dad to give them these medals, knowing I'm going to fail miserably at saying anything meaningful to this mom and dad who had just lost their oldest son. So I start going through, trying to say all the right words. I'm handing them the medals. And the hardest part for me was to hand that mother a gold star. And if you know what a gold star means this is a family that has lost a son or daughter during time of war. Nobody wants to be a gold star family. Nobody. And I handed this gold star to that mother, and it really, really hit me hard because I knew this mother would have to wear this gold star the rest of her life, indicating that she had lost her oldest son in war. Well, I managed to get through all that, and then I slipped out the side door because I had to get out to the gravesite where we're going to render final military honors. So I get in my sedan, which thankfully was heated, and the graveyard is 6 miles down the road. And we start heading down the road for the gravesite. All along the side of the road, on both sides of the road, are men, women, and children holding American flags. And I got to admit, I got choked up, and I looked at my driver, and I said, you know, you won't see this on the 5 o'clock news, but you should. Because this is our country. This is what makes our country great, that no matter what your thoughts are about this war, no matter what your political affiliation, you're willing to come stand out here in these miserable conditions to honor a young man who died serving all of us, serving this great nation of ours. When I get out to the gravesite, there's an honor guard there from the 82nd Airborne Division, strapped group of young men headed up by a master sergeant. I go up there, shake their hands, I meet all of them, and we talk about what we're going to do, and then we wait to see how many people are going to come out in these miserable conditions to the gravesite. Well, it didn't take long. 1,500 people came out to that gravesite, including a group called the Patriot Guard, which are a bunch of veterans that ride motorcycles with American flags on them. Phenomenal to see this group come out there. All of them veterans. They all came out there to honor this young man. The hearse pulls up. The honor guard takes that flag-draped coffin out of the hearse. They carry it over to the pedestal over the gravesite. The pastor says some words. Then he nods to me. And I say, I point my finger to the honor guard. They do the 21-gun salute. The bugler plays taps. The honor guard takes the American flag off that young man's coffin. They fold it. They hand it to that master sergeant. And that master sergeant, in turn, hands that flag to me. And my last official function is I've got to hand that flag to that mother. Now, normally when you do that, you say something along the lines of, on behalf of the President of the United States and a grateful nation, I present this flag to you in grateful thanks for your son's faithful service, something along those lines. I didn't do that. I got down on my knee in front of that mother. I handed her that flag, and I said, ma'am, I know there's nothing I can say that can assuage the loss you must feel right now. But I hope you know how grateful we are as a nation for the sacrifice that you and your family have made for all of us. And that when you see this flag, you'll remember what a fine young man you raised and how we as a nation will always be indebted to him for his service and sacrifice for our nation and its citizens. And that mother, at that moment, a moment that as a father I could not even imagine, looked at me and said, General, thank you and all of our soldiers for what you do every day. And don't you worry, I'm going to keep sending you my sons. Well, rule number one is generals don't cry. I mean, it's in the rule book. You can't do it, you know. Well, I had a bad case of allergies that day. I had to get up and walk away because I didn't want that mother to see the tears that were streaming down my cheeks. And those words haunted me for years. Well, fast forward to about 9 years ago, and now I'm the Commandant of Cadets at Texas A&M University. And I'm welcoming all the new cadets as they're showing up, shaking hands, talking to them, finding out where they're from and what they're going to major in. Up walks this big strapping young man, and I said, how you doing there, young man? And he said, I'm doing great, sir. What's your name? He tells me his name. I said, where are you from? He said, sir, I'm from Verdon, Nebraska. And I looked at him and I said, where'd you say you were from? He said, sir, I'm from Verdon, Nebraska. And I was about to ask him his name again when I looked to his right. There's that mother. Bad case of allergies that day too. That mother and I hugged each other. We cried. We talked about that day and what it meant. And when I finally regained my composure, I stepped back and I said, why are you here? And she said, General, I never forgot what you said that day and what it meant to me and to my family. And when I found out you were here, I wanted my son to come down here to be a part of what you have to offer as a leader. Well, I looked at that young man. I said, let me tell you something, young man. If we bring in 900 freshmen and 899 of them quit, you ain't going to be one of them. I will chase you to Verd, Nebraska and drag your ass back down here so fast it'll make your head spin. And he looked at me that day and said, don't worry, sir, I'm not going to quit. And he didn't. He graduated 4 years later, commissioned into the Army as a field artillery officer like his older brother. I had the honor of going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where it began for me way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and got a chance to watch him graduate from his field artillery officer basic course. And my wife and I had the distinct pleasure and honor of going to Fort Hood to welcome him home for his deployment to Iraq. That mother sent all 3 of her sons to war. The oldest one, unfortunately, did not come back alive. The other 2 did. The other 2 are still serving today in the Army. I stay in contact with them. In fact, I'm having that young man and his mother for the Auburn game here in a couple of weeks. And while he was a cadet, that mother was a guest of mine at a football game every season. Showed her what real football was all about. Showed her what real Mexican food was all about. But more importantly, showed her what real margaritas were all about. And when he graduated, we had a little party out at the house, to celebrate. And in the middle of the party, she comes up to me. She goes, General, do you mind if we step outside for a minute? I've got something to give you. And I said, sure. So we walked outside, just the 2 of us. And she said, I've been holding on to this for years, waiting for the right moment to give it to you. And I think now's that moment. I said, okay. So she hands me this box. I open the box, and inside is a framed picture of me on my knee in front of her, handing her that flag. Never knew anybody had taken that picture. Somebody obviously had. She had it blown up and framed. That picture sits on my desk to this day. I look at it every single day. And it reminds me of 2 things. The first thing it reminds me of is freedom isn't free. Freedom costs. It's expensive. And those that pay the highest price are among our best and our brightest, and we must never forget them. And the second thing it reminds me of is, as a leader, never underestimate the impact you can have on somebody else with just the smallest gesture. A kind word, a pat on the back to say you done good, a handshake to say thank you, a hug to say I'm proud of you, looking that young person in the eye and saying, you can do this, I have confidence in you, I know you can do this, don't quit. Sending a card or flowers if they're in the hospital. It is amazing what those tiny gestures will do for your people or for others as a leader. It's not the big things, it's the little things that matter the most. You take care of your people, and your people will take care of you. It has been my honor to be here with you today. I thank you all for what you do for this great community and serving these citizens here every single day. God bless you, God bless the great state of Texas, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
General, come on up and check. In the light, I tell you, once again, I'm down here well enough. I got allergies today too, again, but thank you so very much. I hope you guys enjoyed General Ramirez today.